Hey folks! So today I wanted to talk to you about setting goals. And this is both kind of personally as well as setting goals in your game. So the last month I set a goal of posting a video every day in January. And I didn't reach that goal quite. I posted 28 out of 31 days, but I feel really good about that. And the 3 days that I didn't post stuff was I was feeling a little under the weather and wanted to make sure I didn't get sick. So I took a little bit of time for myself. And going into it, I knew I was probably going to miss a day or two, but I didn't let missing a day mean I stopped. And I think that's an important thing when you're kind of doing a challenge like that. Also, another thing happened was we reached the end of chapter 1 of the campaign that I'm running. And that's kind of more of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So one thing I think is really good to do when you're running a long campaign is to have little kind of goals for yourself or for your characters to reach. Have milestones, have chapters. And what this does is it gives a certain sense of accomplishment, because oftentimes there'll be like a week between sessions or 2 weeks between sessions. Sometimes it can start to feel like you don't really know where you're going, or you feel like you're not accomplishing anything. And all the campaigns I've been in as a player that I've felt like really good about, there have definitely been sessions where it's like, we mucked around, we didn't get anything done this session, but looking at it as a campaign, there were clear kind of, okay, we needed to go do this, and we got to this point, and then the next step. So having these steps that makes it feel like your players can look at and say, I accomplished something today. Because I think that's something that I really enjoy as a player, being able to step outside of my personal life, where sometimes it's like, okay, I've been working for a month on this project and it's still not done. But I can go and be in a session and be like, we defeated a dragon. I've not done that yet. But feeling like I did something, I accomplished something. So like with my campaign, the long running kind of conflict hasn't been resolved yet, but they've gotten the first bit. And also this was the first chapter, so it was kind of setting up the world. And it was mostly them figuring out what was going on and figuring out what to expect. As a player, it's also really great to set yourself kind of goals for your character, or in character set yourself goals. So having some kind of motivation, and that might tie into the campaign, or that might be a separate side quest that maybe your GM can draw on, but having something like that, something that is driving your character forward. So in 7th Sea, my character had an overarching goal of wanting to find and defeat or conquer in some way the monster that had destroyed her home village. And there were steps to that goal. So the first step was finding out what it was, and then this next step would be finding it, and so on and so forth. And 7th Sea, I think, is a really great system because the character progression is story-based, so you do have to set those goals for yourself. But you can also do that in Dungeons & Dragons, and that can kind of help play into how your character progresses. And you might discover that you might multi-class because of a goal, or it just provides a little bit of the story behind the mechanics of leveling up. So I finished the first chapter of the campaign, and right now I am trying to figure out kind of what is the next step going to be. I definitely know where my players are going to next session, and I have that kind of figured out, but I've given it a little bit more open-ended. The first chapter was kind of very railroady. There was a clear, this is what my players are doing, and I'm going to, if they venture too far, I have ways to get them back on. But the next chapter is definitely going to be a little bit more up to my players. That's where I'm going to see kind of where do my players want to go, and then I'll figure out what's the goal for that chapter. So I've kind of given them a number of options of where they can go and kind of given them hints, and it's just a matter of which option they pick first. They'll probably get to all of them, but which one they pick first, and then I'll figure out what is the goal, and then I will go from there and flesh that chapter out a little bit more. And I have an idea already of what kind of the end goal of each of those different options are, so that it gives a nice way to wrap up that chapter. Another great thing about having these kind of goals within campaigns, that gives you a nice cutoff of if you have somebody that needs to leave the group, if their personal life gets a little busy or they're moving, whatever, there's a nice place for you to explain why their character is going off and pursuing something else. It's also a great place to add in people, because they're not coming in, they are still coming in midway in a bigger story, but then they get to feel a little bit more personally invested in that individual goal rather than getting thrust into something that maybe they had a little less input on or don't feel as much ownership over. All right, so speaking of future goals, let's talk about what's up next for the channel. We're not going to be doing daily videos for the foreseeable future. We're going to kind of go back to our regular schedule. There will always be a video up on Tuesday, and I am going to try and aim for February and possibly also March to always have a video up on Thursday. We'll see how I do with that. So there you go. And we might throw up a random other short video here and there. That's kind of the schedule you can expect from us for the next little bit. So how do you handle goals and chapters and stuff like that when you run sessions? Do you have clear kind of lineations between certain parts of your campaign? Or hey, you might run shorter campaigns that is one contained thing that only takes a couple of sessions to get through. That's another way to have that, like, yeah, we did something, we accomplished something feeling for your players. Or do you just run kind of open world, it's up to the players, or, you know, these very long drawn out, that could also be really satisfying when you get to the end and it's like, hey, this has taken us a year to get here, but we finally got here and did this. Let's chat about it down below. Thanks to all of our patrons who are helping support us so we can do some cool stuff for you guys. I want to give a special shout out to Sean, Lainey, and Arvi. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons, joining our campaign, and getting some cool perks along with it, you can check out the Patreon link at the end of the video. Alright, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!